Today's tech news moves fast, but understanding it shouldn't be hard. That's why Snarful Solutions Group brings you Connecting the Dots, where we break down what's happening in tech and why it matters to you. Now, let's dive in with your hosts.
What happens when an $11 billion software giant gets, just completely crushed by a chatbot?
Right.
And how do you force a brilliant engineer's brain to unlearn a stolen trade secret once they walk out your front door? Welcome to Connecting the Dots. I'm Alex.
And I'm Morgan, broadcasting from Snarful Solutions Group right here in Sacramento, California.
Today is Tuesday, August 4, 2026. We are jumping right into a massive day for tech news, but before we get to our sources, let's get you caught up on your morning numbers. First up, the weather.
It's a busy one out there.
Oh, wildly active day across the country. There are currently 210 active U.S. weather alerts, and 124 of those are situated over land.
Wow.
Yeah, so if you are traveling anywhere today, definitely check weather.gov for the specifics in your flight path.
For sure. And locally here in Sacramento, it is going to be a scorcher. We're looking at sunny skies, a high of 100 degrees Fahrenheit, and light winds blowing from about 3 to 10 miles per hour.
So keep the air conditioning running.
Yeah, and stay hydrated for sure. Turning to the financial markets, it is a very green morning across the board.
Always love to see that.
Right. The Dow Jones closed up 208.23 points. The S&P 500 is also having a solid day, finishing up 45.20. And looking at the crypto space, Bitcoin actually climbed 455.88 points.
So it's showing some real sustained momentum this week.
Definitely.
Wrapping up our morning numbers with a quick check on the sports world. Huge congratulations to the SF Giants.
Yeah, great game.
They took home a 5-1 victory against the Texas Rangers yesterday. Logan Webb was on the mound, and he took the win, just pitching an absolute gem of a game.
Yeah, he looked great out there.
He really did. Now, moving away from the diamond, we have some absolutely massive tech stories breaking today. We are looking at high-stakes corporate espionage, multi-billion-dollar acquisitions, and the sheer disruptive power of artificial intelligence. Let's unpack this. But first, a quick word from our sponsor.
Today's episode is brought to you by Strong Coffee, the premium instant coffee that tastes like a traditional brew but is packed with 15 grams of protein, MCTs, and adaptogens like ashwagandha. Get clean, sustained energy without the jitters. Use promo code SNARFUL for 20% off at strongcoffeecompany.com.
All right, so we are moving from the morning updates directly into what has to be the messiest, most dramatic tech story of the day.
No, easily. It's a high-stakes corporate public relations battle over trade secrets. It is Apple versus OpenAI.
The receipts have officially been brought out.
They really have.
To set the stage for you, Apple recently sued OpenAI. The core of their claim is that former Apple employees, specifically an engineer named Cheng Lu and a design executive named Tang Tan Apple, claims they stole unreleased product secrets when they left to help OpenAI build new hardware.
Right. And usually when massive titans clash like this, the legal strategy is, incredibly buttoned up. It all happens behind closed doors in dense, redacted legal briefs.
Very hush-hush.
Exactly. But OpenAI decided to completely bypass that tradition and just take this straight to the court of public opinion.
Yeah, they really did.
Overnight, they published this blog post titled, "Apple is Getting This Wrong." And they didn't just issue a standard corporate denial. They actually published internal iMessages and emails to systematically poke holes in Apple's narrative.
It's wild. Let's look at the specific evidence they released, starting with Cheng Lu, because Apple's lawsuit paints this intense picture of Lu as a rogue employee who failed to return a computer and used an authentication vulnerability to access Apple's cloud network weeks after he quit.
Yeah, it sounds like a digital heist from a spy movie.
Right. But OpenAI's receipts present a totally different reality. They released the actual iMessage logs between Lu and his former Apple colleagues. And the texts show that Apple employees were actively reaching out to Lu well after he left, asking for his help to locate files.
Yeah, reading through these logs, the mundane nature of it is honestly hilarious.
It really is.
You have an Apple employee texting him saying things like, do you recall any discussions on shipping this product, even if you don't work here anymore?
Like they're just casually asking for a favor.
Exactly. They're asking him to airdrop files. And Lu is actively trying to log out of his Apple iCloud so he doesn't get in trouble. At one point, Lu texts, "I am fine with you, keep my iCloud signed in for files, just e-messages might get you in trouble."
So Apple is trying to label this as malicious, but OpenAI is, I think, successfully framing it as simple residual access.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when someone leaves a massive corporation, especially a senior employee tacked into this complex web of shared drives and iCloud folders and internal wikis, severing that digital umbilical cord perfectly on day one almost never happens.
Yeah, IT departments are notoriously backlogged.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So OpenAI's argument is that Lou was just trying to help his old coworkers out during a transition, and he only had access because Apple's own quarantine offboarding process is fundamentally broken.
Bringing this down to earth, for any working professional out there, comparing Apple's offboarding process to a messy breakup feels incredibly accurate here.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Right. Like, think about your ex dramatically taking you to court, accusing you of breaking into their house to steal their TV, but then their text history shows them literally begging you for your Netflix password weeks after you moved out. Does this kind of residual access happen a lot when people leave big corporations?
Oh, all the time. That captures the dynamic perfectly. However, the allegations extend beyond just digital file access. Apple also claims that Tang Tan was essentially using job interviews at OpenAI to extract confidential info from current Apple employees.
Wait, really?
Yeah, they allege Tan instructed interviewees to showcase the specific confidential Apple components they were working on just to prove their worth.
Okay, we have to view OpenAI's response here through a critical lens, though, because they are acting like the heroes of transparency by publishing this blog post, but these are highly curated, cherry-picked messages designed by crisis PR teams.
Oh, 100%. It's a curated narrative.
Yeah. But OpenAI vehemently denies the interview allegations, stating that Tan specifically and repeatedly instructed his new team not to use other companies' secrets. They insist their sole focus is pushing the frontier of AI, not ripping off Apple's legacy hardware.
Well, it is a brilliant PR move, regardless of the cherry picking, especially when you factor in the legal gaffe OpenAI exposed at the end of the post.
Oh man, the email thing.
Right, because Apple originally claimed in their filings that OpenAI was ignoring their initial inquiries before the lawsuit was filed, painting them as uncooperative.
The reality of that claim is just embarrassing. According to OpenAI's email receipts, Apple's outside lawyers accidentally emailed the wrong person.
Yep.
They confused two completely different individuals who just happened to have similar Asian last names.
It's so bad. OpenAI published the entire email chain showing the mix-up, complete with the apology from Apple's counsel. It plays perfectly into OpenAI's constructed narrative that this entire lawsuit is, in their words, careless, aggressive, and oddly personal.
Yeah, but a blog post is one thing. That is the public relations battle. Let's transition over to the actual legal ramifications.
Yeah.
Because Apple is not backing down just because they got embarrassed on the internet. What is actually happening in the courtroom?
Well, Apple has filed a massive new motion requesting a preliminary injunction.
Okay.
And an injunction is a legal mechanism that halts operations before a trial even concludes. Apple is asking a U.S. judge to immediately bar OpenAI, along with Lou and Tan, from accessing, acquiring, using, or disclosing any of the alleged confidential information.
Right, and the actual hearing for this isn't even set until October 1st, 2026.
Exactly. But Apple's argument is that they are suffering irreparable harm every single day the court waits.
There's an attempt at a compromise that broke down before this aggressive filing, right? Apple sent OpenAI a letter outlining how they could avoid this whole injunction mess if OpenAI agreed to 5 specific demands.
Yeah, they did.
And OpenAI agreed to 3 of them. They said they'd stop accessing the information, halt any ongoing disclosure, and preserve all evidence. Which, sounds like a reasonable middle ground.
It does, but they completely flatlined on the last 2 demands. Apple demanded the right to conduct deep forensic inspections of OpenAI's physical devices, their cloud storage architecture, their internal emails, their Slack channels, and Microsoft Teams.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Apple basically wanted unfettered access to search OpenAI's entire internal digital system for any trace of Apple's confidential information.
I mean, there's zero chance any tech company agrees to that. You do not let your biggest, most well-funded rival rummage through your company's Slack and proprietary cloud architecture on a fishing expedition.
Never. But to understand why Apple is pushing so fiercely for these forensic audits and why OpenAI is guarding their systems like a fortress, you have to look at the underlying stakes. This all centers around the physical hardware of the future.
Right.
OpenAI is aggressively developing an upcoming standalone AI hardware device. Rumors suggest it is a smart, HomePod-like assistant.
And just look at Tang Tan's resume. The man spent 24 years at Apple. He oversaw iPhone and Apple Watch design. He knows exactly how Apple builds things.
Oh, intimately.
And then he co-founded a hardware startup called IO Products with Jony Ive, who is, the legendary, iconic designer behind Apple's most famous products.
Right, and that startup merged with OpenAI last year.
Exactly. So Apple is looking at this massive concentration of their former top-tier talent, working on a competing smart home device, and they are terrified. The DNA of Apple's unreleased technology is actively being baked into OpenAI's new hardware line.
That's exactly their fear.
But I have to push back on Apple's legal logic here for a second. Let's just assume Lou and Tan did see or memorize highly valuable trade secrets. That knowledge is now permanently in their heads. From a legal standpoint, how do you legally force an engineer to unknow a concept? You can't just put the toothpaste back in the tube.
No, you can't. And you are hitting on one of the most notoriously complex areas of intellectual property law. It involves something called the inevitable disclosure doctrine.
Okay, what's that?
Well, in certain jurisdictions, courts acknowledge a messy reality. An employee's general knowledge and accumulated skill belong to them, but highly specific proprietary formulas or processes belong to the former employer.
Right. So if an engineer knows that a specific aluminum alloy fails at a certain temperature because they ran the tests at Apple, they aren't going to suddenly forget that fact and waste 6 months blindly retesting materials at OpenAI. They just know it.
Exactly. And the courts know they cannot wipe a human memory. The injunction is not about erasing brains. It is about freezing production lines.
Ah, I see.
Yeah. Apple's forensic discovery request is designed to find a smoking gun, a copied schematic, an identical line of proprietary code, a stolen supplier contact list. If Apple can prove tangible theft, a judge can physically stop OpenAI from launching their product.
Wow, so that is the existential threat.
Yeah.
Apple wants to legally delay OpenAI's hardware launch for years, starving them of the consumer hardware revenue OpenAI desperately needs to maintain their massive financial overhead.
Exactly. Apple and OpenAI are fighting tooth and nail over who gets to build the physical hardware of the AI future.
It's wild. But, while they fight over tomorrow's hardware, generative AI is actively destroying the software of the present. Which brings us to a staggering example of collateral damage in the broader software market. Let's look closer at that.
Yeah, the ground is shifting beneath traditional software companies at a terrifying speed. News just broke that Bending Spoons has acquired the database software company Airtable for $1.28 billion in cash.
Okay.
And when you factor in their cash equivalents, the total enterprise valuation sits at around $2.25 billion.
To give you the jaw-dropping context on why that number is sending shockwaves through Silicon Valley, during the peak of the pandemic tech boom in 2021, Airtable was valued at $11.7 billion.
Yeah, it's insane.
That is nearly a $10 billion erasure of wealth. For anyone listening who works in project management, operations, or logistics, you know Airtable. It is everywhere.
It is completely ubiquitous in the corporate world. Airtable currently serves over 500,000 organizations. They are embedded in 80% of the Fortune 100. As of June 2026, they were generating $480 million in annual recurring revenue, and that revenue was still growing at 20% year over year.
So let's break down that paradox. If they have 500,000 corporate clients, deep entrenchment in the Fortune 100, and they're pulling in nearly $500 million in recurring growing revenue, why did their valuation just crater by 80%?
Simply put, generative AI completely deleted their future growth ceiling. Airtable was the absolute darling of the no-code movement. The entire pitch was that you no longer needed to hire an expensive software engineer to build complex relational databases or custom workflow apps for your team. You just used Airtable's beautiful, intuitive drag-and-drop interface.
Right. Think about the hours you may have spent meticulously organizing rows, linking tables, and setting up automation rules in a project management tool. It empowered middle management to build bespoke software without knowing how to code.
But the mechanics of how Airtable works is crucial here. It relies on a relational database. This means humans have to explicitly define the relationships between data points. You have to tell the software column A connects to column B under these specific conditions. It requires rigid structure and human logic.
Right, and then ChatGPT, Claude, and advanced generative AI models exploded onto the market, and they process information in a completely different way.
Exactly. A large language model, or LLM, does not need structured tables. It converts raw, messy, unstructured text into numbers and plots them in a massive multidimensional mathematical space called a vector space. It understands context natively.
Oh, wow.
So suddenly, the value proposition of spending 3 weeks manually building a rigid no-code database looks entirely obsolete. Why force your team to learn database architecture when you can just dump a chaotic folder of raw PDFs, emails, and spreadsheets into an LLM and ask it a complex question in plain English?
Yeah, the AI tools are just eating the no-code market share from the bottom up. Generative AI just made the human skill of manual data structuring completely unnecessary. But Airtable did try to pivot earlier this year, right? They launched a product line called AI Super Agents.
They did, yeah. CEO Howie Liu pushed hard to get Airtable into the AI orchestration game. They tried to build a platform where users could spin up teams of AI agents to execute tasks. But the market clearly decided it wasn't enough.
Interesting.
Investors viewed it as a legacy database company desperately trying to bolt AI features onto the side of an aging ship. They lost their pioneer status.
Which brings us to the buyer, Bending Spoons. For those unfamiliar, Bending Spoons is an Italian firm that recently went public at an $18.4 billion valuation. And their entire business model is fascinating and, honestly, a bit ruthless.
It really is. Bending Spoons operates essentially as a digital private equity firm. They do not buy companies to innovate or push the boundaries of technology. They buy struggling, widely recognized digital brands at a steep discount, strip them down, and optimize them for pure cash flow. We have seen them execute this exact playbook with legacy digital properties like Evernote, WeTransfer, Eventbrite, and AOL.
Yeah, they acquire these massive user bases, aggressively trim the staff, streamline the core product offerings, and just crank up the profit margins.
Yeah.
They recently stated in a government filing that they have identified over 1,000 tech businesses as potential future acquisition targets.
So for Bending Spoons, acquiring a sticky $480 million revenue stream for a net enterprise value of $1.28 billion is a phenomenal financial play. They are not betting that Airtable's engineers will suddenly out-innovate OpenAI.
Yeah.
They're placing a highly calculated bet on corporate inertia. Massive Fortune 100 companies move incredibly slowly. Bending Spoons knows those massive corporations will just keep paying their Airtable subscription invoices for the next decade while their IT departments slowly figure out their long-term AI strategies.
Thinking about the macro narrative here, there is a deeply brutal irony to Airtable's fate. Airtable built an empire on teaching human beings how to structure and organize data, and their valuation was just decimated by AI models that were trained on precisely that kind of organized, structured data. Before we wrap up, a quick thanks to Old Glory, an iconic music and sports fan merch store, perfect for the techie in your life. Use promo code SMARTFUL for 15% off at oldglory.com.
So to tie today's sources together, we are witnessing the staggering dual-sided power of artificial intelligence in real time. On one end of the spectrum, it is the catalyst for bitter corporate espionage battles between titans like Apple and OpenAI, fighting fiercely over who gets to build the physical hardware of tomorrow.
Yeah, and on the other end of that same spectrum, generative AI is simultaneously erasing billions of dollars in future value from traditional software giants like Airtable, rewriting the fundamental rules of how software is built, valued, and utilized by everyday workers.
It all comes down to the underlying data. Who possesses it, who is aggressively protecting it, and who has the algorithmic architecture to extract the most value from it the fastest.
Which leaves me with one final lingering thought for you to chew on today, building right on the tension we discussed in that Apple and OpenAI dispute. Let's say a court actually executes that forensic data sweep and definitively proves that stolen proprietary trade secrets were fed into an AI model's training data. How do you force a neural network to unlearn it? Training an AI model is like baking a cake. Once the cake is fully baked and out of the oven, Apple is essentially asking the legal system to surgically remove their specific brand of flour. You can't just delete a file. The ingredients are already permanently baked into a trillion-parameter mathematical structure.
Yeah, the ingredients are permanently mixed. You can't unbake it.
We're here to help at Snarful, so reach out on our website if you have any more questions.
That's a wrap on today's top stories. Remember, tech doesn't have to be complicated, and we're here to help connect the dots. If you've got questions or want to learn more, visit us at snarful.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.